Before we start the video, I have a message for only my subscribers. And if you are not a subscriber, you are not allowed to hear this. If you're already subbed and you want more ways to support me and the channel, go ahead and check out patreon.com/ProbablyJacob, where you can sub for as little as $2 a month and get access to exclusive podcast content. Also, if you want to hear the free episodes of the podcast, go ahead and head over to my second YouTube channel and subscribe there. Or check it out on almost every podcasting platform. Here's what you're missing out on by not listening to the podcast.
Okay, let me tell you. If the NBA had like enforcers like hockey does, Ed Kemper would not have been a serial killer.
God, yeah.
If NBA teams had
If
a
NBA
guy,
was a full contact sport.
yeah, if basketball was like a full contact sport and you just got in the penalty box for like a little bit for breaking somebody's kneecap off during a game, Ed Kemper would have been a star athlete.
People would not be talking about Larry Bird.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Larry Bird would have had those fucking skinny legs snapped
If
right
Ed
off.
Kemper had been born in Canada instead of California, I'm hearing he would have just played hockey instead of murdering women.
Yeah, he would have joined a hockey team and like learned community. He would have like learned the ups. It would have been like one of those heartwarming sports
the first
movies
thing
where,
he
like,
ever cared about was his teammates.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, have you ever seen Goon? It would be like Goon, but with an even bigger, more pissed off guy. He'd be like, Ed, like, yo, man, we've been thinking about it, buddy, and we don't think, like, your mom was normal. You shouldn't listen to any of the shit that she's saying, my guy. You want to come out with the team for some brews?
Alright, let's get back to the video. A while back in one of my horror game videos, I compared Cry of Fear to one of those walking simulator type games like Amnesia or something, and this was a mistake. I'm not sure what happened there. I think I got Cry of Fear mixed up with one of the other 10,000 horror games with fear in the title. So after that, I decided that instead of posting some half-assed correction on Twitter that no one is going to read, why not just do an entire video on it that no one is going to watch? Cry of Fear is a first-person horror game in the Source engine, which is an engine that already kind of lends itself to the horror vibe. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch one of the 800 video essays on why Source games are creepy. I don't know why it works because I haven't actually seen any of these. I'm guessing it has something to do with the textures and the skyboxes, making it look like you're standing outside of an abandoned Amazon warehouse in the wrong town. To get to the point though, Cry of Fear is definitely not even remotely close to being in the realm of walking simulator. It is very much a high-action horror game, which definitely has its own set of pros and cons that we'll get into. In my Lost in Vivo video, I talked about how a lot of people have described Vivo as a first-person Silent Hill. Cry of Fear is very, very much in that same camp, but I would say that it's even more similar to Silent Hill than Lost in Vivo. And while I'm on this topic, some guy got pissed at me for saying every horror game is like Silent Hill. I don't know what to tell you, bud. Everybody just rips off Silent Hill. Don't get pissed at me about it. Go watch Donkey's video on originality in games. We're all monkeys in the same barrel, and the barrel is full of people who don't have any ideas for horror games besides just doing Silent Hill again. That being said, Cry of Fear stands out as its own take on first-person Silent Hill in a few ways. First of all, this is Silent Hill made by gun nerds. Bro, can you imagine if you were in Silent Hill and you had your Glock 19 9mm handgun? Hey guy, what do you think would happen if you shot Pyramid Head with a steel slug traveling 2,000 feet per second out of a 12-gauge Remington Model 870 shotgun? By the way, I'm like 99% sure you can't just use the actual gun names in a game. Like, what are the odds these guys paid the licensing fees for this? These Coke bottles are also legally dubious, but I guess that's how you know a game is punk rock. That, and the pro tag has, you guessed it, fingerless gloves. And if you're wearing fingerless gloves, demons cannot get you. The gun nerd stuff continues well into gameplay as well. Your ammo counter is an actual magazine you need to pay attention to, and if you reload at the wrong time, you'll just waste ammo. Which is kind of stupid, because you could just pocket the magazine you take out, but whatever, I get what the game is going for here. It forces you to pay attention and not just panic reload every time you put 9 bullets in a Hammerman. Also, if you're holding 2 items at once, like say a phone and a Glock, you can't reload it if both of your hands are full, which usually means putting down your light and reloading in the dark, which is obviously less than ideal in a horror setting. You can also fire way faster and way more accurately if you're actually holding the gun correctly and not dual-wielding Twitter and a 9mm like some sort of Gen Z rapper trying to TikTok their first crime.
Put the camera.
Dual wield!
All of this gun realism isn't just there to make guys who are too fat to be cops sweat in their gamer chairs. It also does something really important for a horror game where you can fight enemies, which is actually build enough tension to make it scary. Yeah, you could have a gun in the sewer, but if you need to stop and reload while you're fighting these guys, you're going to be in the dark for way too long. So do you reload before you go in and waste some bullets, or do you just run past them? It's not always as simple as clicking the shoot button. This also has a heavy impact on your inventory management. I won't go into a 10-minute tirade about how inventory management is a great way to make a game scarier since I just explained it in my last video, which you should watch, but only having 6 inventory slots, and later only 3, means you can't just carry every weapon you find. You need to choose carefully and decide when it might be time to ditch a gun you aren't finding ammo for. But of course, this game definitely isn't only good design choices. There are some rough patches in here as well. First of all, the biggest mark against Cry of Fear is its level design. At first, it's fine. Walking through a spooky abandoned city and random apartment buildings, trying to shoot ghouls in cramped spaces and sneak around alleyways is fine and very atmospheric. The issue starts about halfway through the game when you need to backtrack through basically the entire map trying to find 2 fuses to unlock this subway door. The developers tried their best to sort of point you in the right direction by putting enemies in your way, but you're still expected to notice some pretty obscure stuff. You get a key, for example, that's just labeled by a street name and unlocks this totally unremarkable looking door in an area you definitely don't remember. This is the kind of thing you're going to need to crawl through an entire map to find, and it makes the second half of the game feel very padded out. I would have much rather just left the city without the backtracking and moved straight into the forest section, but the forest section is also pretty annoying. You would be surprised at how quickly beating a J-horror ghost to death with a stick in the woods becomes tedious rather than even remotely intimidating. That being said, the end of the forest section when you're walking back after daybreak and the dark, spooky horror ambiance is replaced with the morning sun and birdsong, that was pretty good. I could go on about the level design and talk about how every single one of these goddamn Source games wants to do the Half-Life platforming and other annoying things like how fucked up and awkward crouching and jumping or jumping and crouching to fit into areas feels, but this sort of feels like a waste of time. This game was almost for sure developed by relatively inexperienced indie devs, and it would be kind of an asshole move to tear it apart over level design mistakes or padding. When you go into a Source game like this, you need to expect a certain level of jank. This isn't an 800-man team making the plumber jump game. That being said, I will literally never finish the final boss in this game, because if I have to spend another 10 seconds on this fucking platform sequence, these books aren't going to be a metaphor. The only other small point I'll make about design before I move on to some other stuff is that this game's horror probably relies a little bit too much on jump scares. There are a decent amount of jump scares, and there are a lot of enemies that scream at you all the time, which sort of gets annoying after a while. I'm not going to play any real examples because I assume you value your eardrums, so just go into this expecting jump scares. Of course, since this game is Gun Nerd Silent Hill, it probably wouldn't be a complete video if I didn't talk a little bit about its symbolism and story, so I guess if you want to avoid Cry of Fear spoilers, skip to here, but I don't think anything in this part of the video is going to be that wild. The game's themes aren't exactly subtle. Cry of Fear opens up here, with our protagonist who looks like every kid whose mom owns too many cats getting bodied by a car. Then we wake up, and from this point forward we are stuck in Counter-Strike with ghosts. The entire game is one big metaphor for the character struggling with thoughts of suicide after getting hit by the car at the start of the game and becoming paralyzed from the waist down. There are all kinds of allusions to it for the entire game. This enemy kills itself with its death animation. This enemy is called a suicider and carries a gun with a big gross bag head and dies in one headshot. Like I said, it's not subtle. And you should probably be able to tell by now that this game really leans into that whole Silent Hill idea of being stuck in a weird liminal limbo where everything is a reflection of all the shit wrong with the main character's head. All of this stuff is just sort of okay and not a particularly original idea for a story, but like I said, I'm not going to lean too hard into taking a source game made by a microscopic developer into the octagon for YouTube views. At the end of the day, I think Cry of Fear is sort of a classic source game for a reason. It's got a great horror atmosphere, and the first-person shooter mechanics are great for a horror game. And even though the level design kind of falls apart in the second half, and the entire plot and all the themes are extremely derivative, it's probably not a bad pick for some Halloween gaming, and you can finish it off in one night pretty easily. If you want to see more videos like this one, consider subscribing. If you're already subbed, check out my Patreon, my Discord channel, my Twitch channel where I stream at least once a week, and my Twitter so you don't miss any important updates. You can find the links to all of this stuff in the description. I'll be back soon with a video that is hopefully a little bigger. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.